Welcome back to the channel, Little Flexers. My name is JW Creewall, aka flexdaddy, and this is the best place to be to learn about the Pokemon TCG and have some fun along the way. The Pokemon TCG has a ban list, which is used in official tournaments to stop overpowered cards from skewing the game experience in a way that severely stifles deck creativity or otherwise gives one player too significant of an advantage. In today's video, we're going to cover the top 10 banned cards in the Pokemon trading card game. Supporter cards in the Pokemon TCG have very strong effects. Often they draw player cards or mess with an opponent's hand, or bring a Pokemon the opponent is hiding on the bench into the active position. Since you can only play one per turn, you better make it count. Normally, Pokemon can only be evolved after they've been in play for at least a turn, but our first card on the list can bypass this restraint. Walle? No, not that Walle. Is a supporter that states, search your deck for a card that evolves from one of your Pokemon, excluding Pokemon EX, and put it onto that Pokemon. This counts as evolving that Pokemon. Shuffle your deck afterward. You can use this card during your first turn, or on a Pokemon that was put into play this turn. This card became extremely problematic in combination with Trevenant. Trevenant, with its Forest Curse ability, prevents the opponent from playing item cards if it is in the active position. Item cards are usually less powerful than supporters, but unlike supporters, can be played an unlimited amount of times in a turn. Items usually help players search for or evolve their Pokemon. Items like Ultra Ball, Level Ball, Rare Candy, and Acrobike are all vital for decks to execute their strategies, but they are all prevented from being played so long as a Trevenant is active. With an opponent unable to operate their deck properly from the first turn of the game, Walle and Trevenant were a potent combo. Walle and Trevenant became so degenerate that they were eventually banned in the expanded format. But it wasn't all bad news for Walle. With the release of Sun and Moon, the rules of the game changed. Under the new rules, players who went first couldn't play a supporter on their first turn of the game, thus significantly nerfing the Walle-Trevenant combo, as it could no longer be activated on turn 1. This rule change meant players could no longer get an item lock established before the opponent had an opportunity to play their turn, and ultimately led the Pokemon Company to rescind Walle's ban. At number 9, we have Archaeops. A core tenet of the Pokemon franchise is evolution. Pikachu evolves into Raichu, Charmander into Charizard, and Bergmite into whatever this thing is. But there was one card that could prevent opponents from evolving, and it was no surprise that the card was eventually banned. Archaeops' ancient power ability reads, each player can't play any Pokemon from his or her hand to evolve his or her Pokemon. There is no doubt that the game designers meant for this card to not only be restrictive for both players, but also be difficult to get into play. As a fossil Pokemon, you would have to go through a rather arduous task of using a plume fossil to search the bottom 7 cards of your deck for an Archon, and then evolve that Archon into Archaeops. Getting Archaeops into play was so difficult, Archaeops was rarely, if ever, played in competitive decks. But all that changed with the release of XY Primal Clash and Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick. This new supporter allowed players to put a fighting Pokemon from their discard onto their bench, provided Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick was the last card in their hand. With this new strategy, Archaeops play rose significantly. The deck that took the most advantage of Maxie's with Archaeops was Night March, a heavy-hitting deck focused around basic Pokemon. Night March with Archaeops would go on to dominate the format, leading to Archaeops' eventual ban. Number 8 is easily one of the most nefarious, evil, and heinous Pokemon of all time. This Pokemon will make anyone's skin crawl, and it's no wonder that this card was banned with how much fear it invoked in opponents. That's right, it's Flabebe. Flabebe from the Forbidden Light expansion has the ability Evolutionary Advantage, which reads, if you go second, this Pokemon can evolve on the first turn of the game. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem. There can't possibly be any oppressive Floette cards, right? Think again. Floette from the Cosmic Eclipse expansion has an ability that absolutely abuses Flabebe. Flower Picking says, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may choose a random card from your opponent's hand. Your opponent reveals that card and shuffles it into their deck. Oppressive combinations were soon concocted by players. Mismagius, which can evolve on a player's first turn through Duskstone, as well as knock itself out to draw additional cards, can activate an Ace Trainer supporter, which can only be played if that player is down on prizes. Both players shuffle their hand into their deck, one player draws 6, and the player with more prize cards remaining draws 3. Ace Trainer was meant to be a comeback card for later in the game and was never meant to be used early. With the opponent at a 3-card hand, the player could spam Floette with Scoop Up Net, Super Scoop Up, and Scoop Up Cyclone to reuse Floette's ability and reduce the opponent's hand all the way to 0. Because of the oppressiveness of this combo, the Pokemon Company was forced to cancel one of the most sinister characters in Pokemon, Flabebe. At number 7 on our list is Birthday Pikachu, one of only 3 cards on Pokemon's 2002 ban list. This promo Birthday Pikachu had such an unusual mechanic that it couldn't be used in official tournaments. For 2 lightning energy, Birthday Pikachu's Birthday Surprise attack does 30 damage with an additional effect. If it's not your birthday, this attack caps out at 30 damage. But if it is your birthday, you are allowed to flip a coin. If heads, the attack does 30 damage plus an additional 50 more damage, and if tails, the attack just does 30 damage. With a successful coin flip, Birthday Pikachu could do 80 damage. Considering top decks like Haymaker had Pokemon that swung for 30 for 3 or 20 damage for 1 energy, this was one of the most cost-efficient attacks at the time. But the damage output wasn't what ultimately led to the banning of this card. The birthday stipulation would have led to players lying about their birthday to gain advantage over their opponent, and needing to prove that it was your birthday to unlock this coin flip effect for extra damage was definitely a hassle that tournament organizers didn't want to deal with. With so much potential for abuse, this card was banned before it could ever see play. Shiftry at first glance may be one of the more underwhelming cards on this list. Its Giant Fan ability reads, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may flip a coin. If heads, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon, your opponent shuffles that Pokemon and all cards attached to it into his or her deck. In theory, with enough heads, you can wipe all opponents' Pokemon from their field without ever having to do damage or take a single prize. However, as a stage 2, Shiftry takes at least a turn before it can come into play, which gives your opponent the opportunity to get multiple benched Pokemon. With every additional Pokemon the opponent gets into play, the chances for the Shiftry player to win decrease more and more. Since the ability only activates on a coin flip, there's a chance the strategy fails. In fact, if the opponent has 6 Pokemon in play, the odds to flip heads on Giant Fan 6 straight times falls to just over 1.5%. However, what if there were cards that enabled Shiftry to be played multiple times, and to do so on the first turn of the game when the opponent is most likely to have the fewest Pokemon in play? Enter Forest of Giant Plants. Forest of Giant Plants, which incidentally was also banned later, is a stadium that allows players to evolve their grass Pokemon immediately after playing them to the field. Since Shiftry's prior evolutions are grass type, they can evolve directly into Shiftry with Forest of Giant Plants' help. With Forest of Giant Plants in play, the Shiftry player can churn through their deck with a turbo draw engine featuring cards like Shaman, Unknown, and Bicycle to find their evolutions. If you want to go all in on the coin flip strategy, you can even play Roller Skates, which allows a player to draw 3 cards if they flip heads. Further degeneracy is achieved with the help of Super Scoop Up and the Evolution Spray to activate more chances to use Giant Fan. With a heads, Super Scoop Up allows a player to pick up one of their Pokemon and all cards attached, which they can then play back down immediately, activating an additional Giant Fan. De-Evolution Spray occupies a similar role in that it can pick up the highest stage evolution from any of your Pokemon in play and put it back into your hand, only to re-evolve it immediately. Just how consistent was this strategy? Some models predicted that a player could pull off upwards of 14 Giant Fans in a single turn, with an average of 7.5 flips per game. Thankfully, this card was banned before ever seeing play in an official tournament, preventing this despicable strategy from seeing play. At number 5 is Sableye from Dark Explorers. Sableye has a junk hunt attack that allows a player to pick up any 2 item cards from their discard pile and put them back into their hand. This card formed the backbone for some extremely powerful decks that could bring back item cards like Trick Shovel, Crushing Hammer, and VS Seeker for Team Rocket's handiwork. These cards could quickly discard the opponent's resources until their Pokemon were rendered powerless and their deck was rendered useless. In an article released to justify Sableye's ban, the Pokemon Company said, Sableye's Junk Hunt attack allows for infinite resource recursion strategies that are relatively simple to achieve. In an attempt to curb the effectiveness of some of these control and lock strategies, this card has been banned. Though Sableye was playable for a number of years, eventually the level of degenerate items it could recycle forced the card to be banned. At number 4, we have Tropical Beach. Every year at the World Championships, invited players receive a promo card as a reward for their hard work. In 2011 and 2012, that promo was Tropical Beach. The only way a player could obtain this coveted card was if they played in the World Tournament or purchased one from someone who played. Some players speculate that there were a mere 5,000 English Tropical Beach in existence, with many finding their forever homes in collectors' binders. Due to this scarcity, a Tropical Beach in today's economy will run you upwards of $300, easily one of the more expensive cards in the game. But if it wasn't good, its limited supply wouldn't be an issue. However, the Stadium card reads that player may draw until he or she has 7 cards in his or her hand, and if he or she does, that player's turn ends. This is an extremely powerful effect for slower decks that need a few extra turns to set up. Its rarity and price proved far too restrictive for players, and it was eventually banned from competitive play. Coming in at number 3, Sneasel from Neo Genesis. Sneasel's beat-up attack says, flip a coin for each of your Pokemon in play, including this one. This attack does 20 damage times the number of heads. With a full bench, this card will hit for 60 damage on average, with a high of 120. For some context, the next strongest 2-energy attacker at that time was Electabuzz, which did 30 base damage and an additional 10 damage if the player flipped heads. If that weren't enough, Sneasel had no weakness, it had psychic resistance, it had no retreat cost, and it could utilize special darkness energy to boost its damage output even further. This card dominated the game until its eventual ban in 2001. At number 2, we have Marshadow from Shining Legends. This cruel card was banned for being far too oppressive on the first turn of the game, leaving games to be decided on what a player drew after a Marshadow hit the field. Marshadow's ability Let Loose says, when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may have each player shuffle their hand into their deck and draw 4 cards. The issue here comes when the first player has the opportunity to get their Pokemon and energy onto the field and then play Marshadow at the end of the turn, leaving their opponent with only 4 cards. This strategy led to more slow starts and more bad draws, which ultimately meant a worse overall player experience. You might enjoy winning games because your opponent doesn't draw any good cards, but I prefer to win with my superior skill and intellect. And the number 1 card on our list is Slowking from the Neo Genesis expansion. This card has a pretty interesting history and was only banned because of a mistranslation. Pokemon cards are released in Japan, and it's up to each country to translate cards into their own language. In the case of Slowking, something got lost in translation. Here's how Slowking was supposed to read. You may use this power if Slowking is your active Pokemon. Whenever your opponent plays a trainer card, you may flip a coin. If heads, that card does nothing. Put it on top of your opponent's deck. This power can't be used if Slowking is asleep, confused, or paralyzed. However, in the English translation, the first sentence about Slowking needing to be in the active position never quite made it across the ocean. With the English translation of the card, Slowking could be activated from the bench, which made it far more abusable. Getting all 4 Slowking into play meant that a player's opponent would have to successfully flip 4 heads to play a single trainer card. That's a success rate of 6.25%. In other words, for every 16 trainers a player tried to play, 1 of them would be successful. Because of Slowking's strength, the competitive meta at the time devolved to a race where both players tried to set up as many Slowking as possible as quickly as they could. The first player to get Slowkings in play had a severe advantage because they would block the trainer cards necessary for the opponent to get out their Slowkings. How awful would this card be in the game right now? Thankfully, we'll never have to find out. Thank you so much for watching this video. If there was a card you felt belonged on the list, or if you felt that I did a perfect job, please leave a comment. But for now, I'm going to ban myself from talking. God bless. If I don't see you soon, I'll see you later. And remember, good luck, and also have fun.